The UCLA women's basketball team, ranked number 1 in the country, played in the Coretta Scott King Classic Monday in Newark, New Jersey. The game was part of activities in Newark honoring the national holiday for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. UCLA beat Baylor 72-57 to remain undefeated at 18-0. Bruin center Lauren Betts had 24 points, 9 rebounds, and a school record 9 block shots. The Chicago Bulls snapped the Clippers' 4-game winning streak. 112-99 was the final. Former UCLA star Zach LaVine dropped 35 for Chicago. The Lakers are back in action tonight at Crypto.com against the Washington Wizards. LeBron was in Atlanta last night to watch Ohio State beat Notre Dame for the Division I College Football National Championship. LeBron, a longtime fan of Ohio State University, had a luxury suite at Mercedes-Benz Stadium to cheer on his favorite college. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Now that Donald J. Trump has begun a second term as president, please join the Empowerment Congress and KBLA Talk 1580 to examine the question, where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? At the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. This Saturday, January 25th, some of LA's top elected officials, Representative Sidney Comlager Dove, Assembly members Isaac Bryan and Sade El-Hawari will be on hand for what promises to be a lively and informative conversation. Doors open at 8 a.m. The general session, moderated by Tavis Smiley and broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580, begins at 9 a.m. The event is free, but seating is limited. Registration is required. Go to the Empowerment Congress website at www.empowermentcongress.org to register. Where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? Join the Empowerment Congress and KBLA Talk 1580 this Saturday, January 25th. Doors open at 8 a.m. The free program starts at 9 a.m. Registration is required at www.empowermentcongress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
KBLA Talk 1580, and I'm excited. I'm happy she's back. One of the first folks, early folks, to show up and spend time with me on KBLA when we first started this radio station. She's an artist. Her bio says she's earned wide recognition for conceptual grit, humor, and social commentary using video installation and performance with different explorations into technique and narrative. She has shown her art around the world. Sims examines representations of blackness and its relationship to vernacular, feminist thought, and radical traditions. Well, I'll let her tell you. Martine Sims, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
Yes, you as well.
So for those, if you missed it a couple years ago when she was here, tell folks a little bit about your work. I know your family story is what we really want to get to, but I want folks to understand the work that you've been doing. You just had a big show in Paris.
Yeah, I just opened a sort of retrospective exhibition. That's the word they use. I feel a little too young to be saying retrospective, but it opened in October and it closes February 9th, and it's at the Lafayette Anticipations, and it's 4-floor museum show that kind of looks at...
4-floor?
Yeah.
Wow.
The entire museum.
I love that so much.
But it's a kind of good example of the way my work operates a lot of times, which is kind of using personal history or family history to look at like larger inheritances culturally or historically or socially, and kind of think about how they influence the way we communicate, the way that we live, or how they different pressures that sort of bear on our lives. But I try to do it in sort of a humorous way, using story and using comedy and using my imagination, whatever images come from that.
You say your imagination. To me, that's like kind of like the essence of who you are, just being able to incorporate it into everything you do.
Yeah, and blending, like, I feel like one piece that's coming to my mind right now that I like think about is like it's called Soliloquy, but it sort of uses I recreate the show Sita's World is what it's called, but I kind of changed it because I wanted to feel like a Mandela effect if you watch it. And I worked with the original actress, and we did motion cap and redrew her set, which was like a show on BET where she was a VJ that I used to watch as a kid. But this kind of animated black woman is like a very early memory, but then using her to talk about sort of like technology and politics in these videos.
Mm. You said you're young for a retrospective. Yeah. But talk about how you started very young as an artist, and you're in Angelino.
Yeah.
So talk about how how you ended up being such a young person that people are already saying can do a retrospective.
Well, I do credit it partially to growing up in Altadena, which was a very creative community. Artists like Charles White being there amongst many others, but because I was exposed to that and because my parents were interested also in performing arts from a very young age, it was like I was in ballet, I was in African dance, I was playing AYSO.
I'm laughing because it sounds familiar, other than the soccer part.
I was, going to artist studios and just getting exposed. They wanted to expose me to a lot of things, going to the Norton Simon Museum, and took a lot of classes at the Armory Center for the Art. So I feel like these things and the various cultural centers, our church, we're really involved in our church. So, which is Pasadena Foursquare. That's where I grew up going. I think I was too young when they went to another church before, but we were very involved in the community and service, such a part of the culture of my family. So volunteering at lupus walks, breast cancer walks, like anything that was going on in Altadena or Pasadena, I feel like I was there as a kid, and that kind of made me really curious and try to find out more. And I think also being in Los Angeles, we homeschooled, so it was like,
oh wow,
the city was our education.
Yeah.
And that from a really young age, I was just kind of running around trying to, like, whether it was like with my family or with my friends, exploring.
Shout out to your parents, homeschool. I wanted to do it, but I didn't have the discipline anyway for my kid. But we talked to your brother last week on the show when we broadcast from the Altadena, Pasadena area, the church there, and he shared a little bit of your family's story as a longtime Altadena family and also the losses that you guys have experienced.
Yeah. Actually, in 2015, I wrote a story I did a project with this New York-based organization, Triple Canopy, that's called Solitude, that actually looks at the potential. It's sort of a speculative fiction about a disaster happening in Altadena. And when I was working on that project, I was doing a lot of research at the Altadena Historical Society, and I was going on these kind of like hikes, these survivalist hikes,
Wow.
just as I was researching it and kind of learning about the different communities that came there and how it sort of formed. But so it was kind of the past 10 days, especially the 8th, learning, talking to my brother. He called me when he got to the house and there's like nothing there. I've been tracking, obviously, the previous day what was happening, and seeing photos and talking to so many friends and their families. And, I was the sibling who was very much like, I got to get to the city, get me out of Altadena. But people love it there. So it's like they move back and they want to raise their children there. And so in the community, I think part of what's been really devastating is the generational loss. And our family home was multi-generational. My parents were living there. My brother, his wife, and his 2 kids were living there. And then my sister and her newborn were also there for a while. So it was like everyone is displaced now. And other people lost multiple homes, where there was like a friend of mine is like, she lost her house, her sister lost her house, and their parents lost their house. And I think that kind of strangeness, honestly, of the entire neighborhood, kind of memories, legacies. My parents moved in there in 1980, and they came from
45 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, they worked very hard to be able to have that, and they didn't grow up in that kind of environment, so it was a priority for them to let us grow up in that. Like, that was really what they wanted. So, yeah, I mean, it's honestly, I still have a hard time processing it because I haven't seen it. I think it's open today, so I was planning to actually go and try to take some photos and just sit with a kind of ruins. But it also brings the climate and the disaster closer, which were things that I've been interested in and writing about, and that kind of appear in my work. And that's why I bring up this project, because it's like 10 years ago, I'm writing a project thinking about the possibilities of these things, and now it's happened.
Yeah, I mean, much has been made about the Octavia Butler story, but your own story that you wrote about a disaster in Altadena seems like it also may have bonded you to your childhood home in a way. I mean, those survival hikes and things, you learn things going to the historical society that you didn't know. I feel like it may have given you broader understanding of what was actually lost. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, one of the things I learned, which kind of led to, in 2017, I had an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art, and I showed this film called Incense, Sweaters, and Ice, which that title is taken from the first factories that were in Altadena. Those are the things that were being produced there: incense, sweaters, and ice. And the film itself kind of shows like a reverse migration of a character that was essentially based on my mom, but if she was a 25-year-old in 2016. And so she's like a traveling nurse that sort of moves from Altadena to Mississippi ultimately, but it's like goes from Altadena to St. Louis to Mississippi, which is kind of retracing like my family's journey. And I did the same drive with my actor, and we went through all these things. But when I was working on Solitude, I learned a lot about these kind of housing covenants, and part of why Altadena, is very black is because that was one of the only places that black families could buy homes in Los Angeles. And there was a group that actively advertised they wanted it. Honestly, I should say non-white, because the covenants were restrictive across the board. And so there was this coalition who put ads in the newspaper basically saying, if you're not white and you want to buy a home, come to this place. And so that's part of what made it so diverse. But then there were also so many artists there. There were a lot of, it had a leftist, progressive kind of history. That's initially who was there. And a lot of those people supported artists like Zora Neale Hurston, like Charlie Parker, Obviously Octavia Butler, but something that's kind of been bothering me about people referencing that is like the idea that she was writing about was that we would avoid that. You know, she wasn't writing about it to say like, let's definitely experience that future. And that's part of what what's exciting about reading that book is you're like, God, this sounds horrible. And, you know, you're feeling the fear of the characters and what might happen in that case. She wasn't saying, let's go towards that. And I think that's something I've been talking about with another artist who goes by American Artist, who also grew up in Altadena, who's been doing a lot of work around Octavia Butler, and about that we sort of have to, we don't want to be in that future.
Right,
we want to be in another future.
Write about it so that we don't have to live it, in a sense.
Yeah.
Martine Sims is my guest. We're talking about her art, her community, her childhood home, and more when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power. Now that Donald J. Trump has begun a second term as president, please join the Empowerment Congress and KBLA Talk 1580 to examine the question, where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? At the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. This Saturday, January 25th, some of LA's top elected officials, Representative Sidney Kamlager-Dove, Assembly members Isaac Bryan and Sade El-Hawari will be on hand for what promises to be a lively and informative conversation. Doors open at 8 a.m. The general session, moderated by Tavis Smiley and broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580, begins at 9 a.m. The event is free, but seating is limited. Registration is required. Go to the Empowerment Congress website at www.empowermentcongress.org to register. Where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? Join the Empowerment Congress and KBLA Talk 1580 this Saturday, January 25th. Doors open at 8 a.m. The free program starts at 9 a.m. Registration is required at www.empowermentcongress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. If you own a timeshare, don't miss this public service announcement from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. If you really want out of your timeshare, hang the phone up immediately or throw that mail piece in the trash and contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance with your timeshare. As the only Inc. 500 timeshare cancellation company, our knowledge, experience, and results has made Wesley a trusted resource for over 40,000 families we've helped get out of their timeshare. Give us a call, and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about your timeshare and all of your options for cancellation.
Call for your free info kit, 800-511-2112. That's 800-511-2112. 800-511-2112.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
All right, we're talking with Martine Sims. She's actually a world-renowned artist. She's also from one of our Altadena families. Her brother was on the show last week, Dr. William Sims, and you guys really have helped us understand kind of what that community means to people, not just from an historical, but kind of an everyday living standpoint. And when we did the broadcast on Thursday, I was talking to folks, and of course you see the news. I know, what is going on. But when I actually saw the images on someone's phone of their own home, it felt different because I felt like I was holding my own phone and looking at my own house. And there's a proximity to that I just was overwhelmed by emotion, because you think about, not even in terms of material things, but just memories. That little weird statuette that I've always had, or the photos, or I don't know, my favorite scarf, whatever. How are you processing that?
It comes in waves, honestly. Like, I'll feel, and it's those intangible, or kind of like almost, they have no material value, but they have a lot of sentimental or memory around them. Those are the things I'll think of. I'll think of some object, like my mom had these little like figurines or something like that, and I'll think of the figurines, or I'll think of a very old artwork I made that's like in the living room, and like those are the things that start to make me feel like emotional, like and the photos, like I had started the process of archiving a lot of our family photos, because my dad always took a lot of photos. That's kind of how I had cameras around, and I started taking, that's how I got into photography in some regards. And then when my great aunt died, who lived in more like Koreatown, who was like the member of our family that everyone who came to California stayed with before they established their houses and their families, I took a lot of photos. My dad also did. We took all the stuff. So I started scanning them. I scanned about 3,000, which is a lot.
Wow,
of them.
that's a
more
lot.
Than many people could say, because I was using them in projects and stuff. But I think about those. I think about, I don't know, like my niece and nephew, who are 4 and 7, and just their setups. Like my niece, a few days before the fire, was just over there like playing with her. She loves to play like she's a barista. So she has a little coffee shop, and like that stuff that the first time I saw her after the fire, she was talking about a toy. She had gotten one of her toys replaced, but she was like, I had this toy before, but I had to get a new one because my house burned down. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
like it hurts. And then I have a lot of friends who are artists, both people I grew up with and people I know through the art world, who all lived in Altadena. A lot of people who moved back there or who moved there, and they've lost equipment and things they can't replace, and their work and materials. And like I know from my own studio, sometimes I jokingly call it like an eBay store, as you like accumulate objects, or you like see something that you're like, oh, that looks cool, I don't know how I'm gonna use it yet, but I'm gonna take it. And those are the things, like both in the house and thinking about other people, that I feel like you really feel the loss of. You're like, oh, it's so, it is, again, it's like what it could be, the potential of it, but also like what it was, what it meant, everyone using it, everyone sitting around the table. And yeah, those are the things that kind of start to make me feel sad.
How are your parents doing? I think about what you said of your parents coming from not having that stability, and that's me. We moved so many times, and mostly a single mom household in different apartments. And so it was very important for me to buy a home and raise my child in one home, so they would have that experience of growing up in one home, a stable kind of base. And how are your parents doing? I mean, that's they provided it for you and your brother, but it's gone, and your sister.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was talking to my older brother about this, that that is one of the biggest things that they did provide. Like, being in that house and being in that neighborhood and being in that community, nothing that I've done, I think, would have happened. It's like, it's so key to all the experiences I've had, all the people I met, being able at a really young age to be like, I'm going to be an artist and decide that. How would you, some people don't even know what that is. I had someone like Charles Wyatt or,
How old were you when you made that declaration?
4 or 5.
I love that so much.
I also wanted to be president. Somehow those two
I think that could still happen.
Mutually compatible. Yeah, maybe now.
Maybe you could save us.
But, yeah, so I feel like they, in the first few days, I have a close family friend who they lost their house in the Woolsey fire. And so as soon as it's my friend's parents, but when they relocated, they lived next door to me. So I became friends with them. And, as soon as they kind of heard, they called me. Barbara Fair, she was on MSNBC last week talking about this and she's also a climate activist and lawyer. And she called me immediately and was like, okay, your parents they're going to be traumatized, and you need to have grace and you need to have patience, but also you need to help them. And she literally gave me like a step-by-step, here's everything that's about to happen, here's everything you need to do. And this resource, which I'm like typing it all down, I'm writing down each thing, I also shared with every person I'm talking to. I'm getting live updates from so many different people that day. I'm getting photos, like you were talking about, seeing people's photos from my sister of like power lines down, trees falling, she's there with the baby trying to get out, black smoke filling, other people's houses exploding while they're there, getting these things. And just, I wanted to help, so I started to immediately just have these resources. So I think when I talked to my parents yesterday, they were joking though about 2 things that people keep saying to them, which I actually do think is something that needs to stop, the commentary. But my mom's saying people keep asking her, oh, you didn't get anything?
Ugh.
Nothing?
Okay. Wow.
And my dad said people keep saying, why aren't you more upset?
Wow.
When, he was crying, devastated. They were both undone. That's the word I would use. Yeah.
Yeah, I some of the commentaries that I'm hearing in the media too are very problematic, because there's like judgment. I mean, you didn't get anything to me is judgy, and why aren't you more upset is judgy. Everyone processes their upset in different ways. Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. The Eaton fire right now, 89% contained, but that doesn't mean we're 89% the way to recovery. We'll continue this conversation with artist Martine Sims when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. President Trump has officially pardoned roughly 1,500 people convicted in the January 6th riots. Trump signed the pardons on Monday in his first day back in the White House. He said he also signed commutations of sentences for 6 defendants. The National Weather Service has issued the highest fire danger alert for Los Angeles due to low humidity and high winds, with gusts up to 100 miles per hour expected in some areas. Either sell it or lose it. That's the executive order President Trump signed, aimed at tackling the TikTok ban. Trump said the value of TikTok could hinge on his decision whether or not to approve a potential deal to sell the app. And the Ohio State Buckeyes capped the first ever 12-team playoff with a 34-23 win over Notre Dame Monday night to capture the College Football Playoff National Championship. I'm Bree Wood on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Shop limited time deals during Lowe's Pro Savings Days. Get a free adjustable stand when you buy a DeWalt 12-inch miter saw. That's a $229 value. Valid 1/13 through 1/24 while supplies last.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team, ranked number 1 in the country, played in the Coretta Scott King Classic Monday in Newark, New Jersey. The game was part of activities in Newark honoring the national holiday for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. UCLA beat Baylor 72-57 to remain undefeated at 18-0. Bruin center Lauren Betts had 24 points, 9 rebounds, and a school record 9 block shots. The Chicago Bulls snapped the Clippers' 4-game winning streak. 112-99 was the final. Former UCLA star Zach LaVine dropped 35 for Chicago. The Lakers are back in action tonight at Crypto.com against the Washington Wizards. LeBron was in Atlanta last night to watch Ohio State beat Notre Dame for the Division I College Football National Championship. LeBron, a longtime fan of Ohio State University, had a luxury suite at Mercedes-Benz Stadium to cheer on his favorite college. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
I don't even know where to start with health insurance. Do I just, call a hospital and ask them?
Look up Covered California. That's their whole deal, making it easier to get and pay for health insurance.
Okay, but can I afford it?
Yes. They work with a bunch of health insurance companies. I pay something like $10 a month, and it's actually really good coverage.
Wait, what? How did I not know this?
You just needed to know who to ask.
If you've got questions, Covered California can help every step of the way. Enroll by January 31st. Covered California. This way to health insurance.
This is for all the folks who appreciate follow-through. Here's a quick recap of the KBLA Talk 1580 2024 Climate Justice Campaign. More than 6.4 million Southern Californians viewed our climate justice billboards and bus shelters. Another 1.5 million people listened to and or downloaded our weekly conversations with African American climate experts. Our KBLA Climate Justice web portal had 2.8 million unique visitors. Thousands more attended our 7 climate justice community events. More than 9.3 million riders saw our climate care messaging on metro buses and trains. And 39 million Americans accessed our C-SPAN Climate Justice Symposium. All told, our 2024 Climate Justice Campaign exceeded 471 million total impressions. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks all of our 2024 Climate Justice partners: LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, Sierra Club, California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr., the California Wellness Foundation, MWD, AQMD, and the Port of Los Angeles. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, changing the conversation. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. Your info is in endless places that could expose you to identity theft, leading to lost funds. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
Martine Sims is my guest. She's an artist and a resident. Her childhood home is in Altadena. Her parents and multiple generations, as you said, are there. I was reading that you're involved and some other artists are involved in some recovery efforts, not just in general for Altadena, but also specifically around art and artists.
Yeah, there's been there's a number of spreadsheets kind of people's fundraising efforts, GoFundMes, but also to find equipment and things like that. There's also just been a network helping people rebuild their studios and find other studio spaces. And then there's a larger project, which is this kind of art and grief fund, which will be distributed through the BRIC, which I think opens today, the applications, and that's for any artist that was affected by the fires. It's a very simple application, and it's run coming from LA organizations and LA artists, so hopefully you can meet the needs of what people are missing. Because I feel like one thing I've been talking about with the artist community is, you know, talking, and also friends. I actually have a lot of friends who were displaced from New Orleans during Katrina, who I went to school with or who live here.
Whoa.
And they were saying, like, a lot of the rebuilding efforts and the cultural efforts, they didn't talk to anyone who was from there, or they came in and they didn't really talk about what people needed. So I think that's been one big thing. And one thing I've been trying to emphasize, and a lot of friends, is if you go back, you need protective gear if you want to make work or anything about it. It's a very toxic environment, so there's a number of drops of to get PPE, but it's just I think, like my own impulse, you know, I really want to see, I've been calling it the ruins. It feels like something that will make it feel also real to me, because I wasn't there when everything was going, but also it's a way that I kind of like immediately process the world and touch the world is through making stuff. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go bring my camera. That's like how I think. But I will be wearing a mask and gloves and not messing around with that. And I think but yeah, there's a lot of different efforts going around that are mostly mutual aid, I will say. Art and Grief is administrated bigger, and I believe the Department of Cultural Affairs is involved, but primarily it's been artists supporting other artists, and I think that's kind of the world I grew up in some ways. Is kind of, I'm a quite institutional artist at this point, but I came up in a very like community-based DIY scene and group of people, and making stuff yourself and doing stuff yourself. And I feel like that kind of organizing has been helpful in this time, but I don't think it's enough.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know there was such a big community of artists there. I know a couple, but I guess I assumed that was a coincidence. And when I think about the struggle that it takes for someone that is an artist to even get that equipment, those cameras, you know, or whatever it is that they need for whatever medium they're working in, it's a lot. So when you say mutual aid is great, and that's the model you're familiar with, but it's not enough, what should be taking place?
Well, I think that there's a call to the art institutions in Los Angeles, for one thing, you know. There's also a call to collectors to buy art. You know, that's like how people are supporting themselves, or even in music. I was talking to Empress of, who's a musician who her family lost their home, and another friend of mine, Nikki Benedek, who was a collaborator actually on Solitude. Both him, his partner, and separately his parents lost their home. He's a producer, he's a musician, he has all this equipment. So one, people need to buy art. You know, already from the strikes that happened, a lot of jobs in the film industry left LA. A lot of commercial projects left LA. Those things happening elsewhere isn't going to help the kind of cultural community here. I think we have museums, I think they need to figure out a way to support people. And I'm not saying that in a way that's like just giving money necessarily, but what the fees are, who's in the collection. I mean, these are things I'm constantly talking about, because those are the infrastructural things that change the collection. Like I talk about growing up going to the Norton Simon Museum. I don't remember seeing any black artists at the Norton Simon Museum. The earliest memory I have is at MoCA, actually, of seeing Renee Green's Funk Import-Export Office, which I did not know the name of that piece until many years later. But I remember seeing this piece that's this whole room, and it has like videos about funk and like all these books, and I saw it on like a class trip, and I remember being like, what is this? That's kind of like the main thing. I wasn't even like, this is beautiful, or this. I was like, this is crazy. This is cool. Like, why is this in here? And then later in college, a teacher told me about Renee Green and was like, you might be interested in this artist. I start going through her work, and I see this piece, and I'm like, like that was that piece. And I feel like, so even as they started to rebuild Altadena, like the Altadena Historical Society, there were things that were contributed to there, but by and large, it was sort of this white, it was primarily covering kind of the white community there. There were things if it was a very exceptional or notable black person, like some of the people I mentioned. But I think that I'm really interested in in the vernacular and in these people's histories, and like Jackie Stewart, who is someone I've worked with when she was in Chicago. She's at the Academy Museum here now. She has a whole project that was at the University of Chicago that was collecting black families' home videos and home photos. So I think there's a number of ways that this could look like, and that's why I think part of right now is actually being on the ground and talking to people and understanding what they need. And, you can come in with a ton of money, but it's like, what, are we just going to have all these like ugly murals and glass buildings? Like I think both Palisades and Altadena are both these creative, leftist, very unique communities, and we can't lose what was unique and specific and ethnic about them,
Yeah, I mean, that's key. I think that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation. And it's also part of the peril of this moment where we have a new president inaugurated yesterday who's literally saying, if you guys don't acquiesce to our agenda, we will not rebuild. And I'm hoping, he's supposed to be touring the area later this week, and I'm hoping that maybe because there's so many wealthy people in Palisades, he'll feel like he should rebuild that. But I'm worried about Altadena, especially when you talk about the arts and the culture of progressive thought that's there. I feel like we can do it, but it may have to be without, the kind of federal help that we would really deserve and expect.
Yeah, and there's so many. It really was like a diverse in terms of both racial or background, but also economically. And I think that that's something that's getting lost in many cities, but I think that's something that I also worry about. And even when people talk about Palisades, I think they miss the invisible labor. I know many people whose parents immediately were fired. They were domestic workers, they were landscapers, and they lost their jobs. And there's so much invisible labor also to the wealthier 1% that is actually getting ignored in this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I know a couple black businesses that service those homes in Palisades doing various things.
Yeah.
And their business is gone.
Yeah.
And businesses, of course, in Altadena that burn to the ground. The jobs piece is something I know we'll be talking more about it, but we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Yeah, exactly. And just the interconnectedness, I think LA can feel so separate, and it's like everybody's in their different world, but they're not actually. And I feel like, how many times do we need the lesson of like, it's not actually disconnected? But yeah, without that is my fear, honestly, that it just be sold to the highest bidder, and people won't be able to stay there. And a lot of people who built their lives, who were working class or middle class, they won't be able to afford to stay there. They're not going to get the payouts that they actually deserve. And their house value, which has changed, obviously, especially with the influx of different communities, what are they going to do? And some of the, like our street, for example, for 25 years, maybe longer actually, I'm like thinking about how old I am. Let's say 25 years. We had a block party every year. There was a block party, so they were very connected to each other. And, you know, on the 7th, there wasn't an official evacuation order till 3 a.m. on January 8th. So the reason everyone on my parents' street evacuated is because they were all talking to each other and they all know each other, and the power went out, and they were hearing like the sounds, both electrical and wind sounds, and neighbor to another were like, we need to go, we should start going. And they helped each other. They helped also people with limited mobility, elderly, and the disabled, or differently abled. And that was, you know, that's just because of that tight-knit community. And I think that's also what draws people to that area, or what draws people back. Like another artist, Kentura Davis, she lost her home as well as her family. She's you know, an incredible artist and someone I work with professionally, but she went to high school with my brother at Muir, and she lived down the street. So that's part of how I know her. But she has a 2-year-old. Her and her husband had moved back there because they wanted that kind of community. I've been talking to her, another old friend, Kate Hall, her sister both lost their homes. And they had found out, unfortunately, that they were one of those people whose insurance got dropped, or, you know, they have parts of the insurance that got dropped without notification. So I just think, people are needing a lot of help, and that's one concern that I do have, just what's going to happen with it.
Martine Sims is my guest. I'm happy to see some mobilization happening, and I'll do everything I can to make sure that continues and we don't move on to the next so-called news cycle. We'll continue this conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust Febreze car vent clips, featuring 3 distinct intensity settings, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up Oscar!
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks Vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors. Use as directed. Vapo Stick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a black and brown-led nonprofit community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors. Use as directed. Vapo Stick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
We're talking with Martine Sims. We're trying to cram in so much stuff because, I mean, your artistry is a whole hour, and this family story of your life in Altadena and what in the organizing that you're doing now, that's a whole hour. But, you know, our doors are open to the other artists, the other families. We are your microphone.
Thank you.
So you have a GoFundMe for your family, and then we talked earlier, when this first happened, about some fake stuff, GoFundMe, so you have some information on that too.
Yeah, we have a GoFundMe for the Sims family that is linked on my Instagram, which is just Martine Sims. But also, my brother, along with a few other groups, have been working on a verified list of Black families that were affected. There's also a verified list of Latinx families that were affected, and their GoFundMes and ways to support with nonprofits, community organizations, as well as direct family support that I could share with you.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to see those lists.
I've been posting. So
that's important.
Very
because
important.
People want to help, and the instinct is to just give to a GoFundMe. Or, you know, we were talking to a fire captain last night that was saying they got so many packs of Gatorade at the fire station, they didn't know, they had nowhere to put them. So let's donate what people actually need and where they actually need it.
That's another thing I've been doing is my studio. It always looks like an eBay store, as I mentioned, but right now it really looks like one because it's been a kind of ad hoc donation center that I've been redistributing stuff in. And fortunately, a lot of the stuff that I've been getting and been given is high quality. It's new. But from what I've heard, people are really needing like toiletries, hair care, skin care, toothbrush,
and money,
all those things. Yes.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for way of things to donate, please make sure it's something you would want to wear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this Alice Coltrane show.
Oh, there is a show. I'm going to forget right now the full title, but I've been calling it the Alice Coltrane Show. It's curated by Aaron Cristoval at the Hammer Museum, and it opens February 8th, so very soon. And it's actually one of the biggest projects. We talked about Alice Coltrane actually when I was on here the last time. She's a big influence on me, and I have work in the show as well as a number of the artists that I mentioned throughout. There's over 50 artists in the show, all doing different projects, new commissions, as well as kind of historical works. And I was able to go to her archive, work with her daughter, Michelle, and make work using the things she meditated with. I have a long-term meditation practice, and so that was exciting to kind of put back together her shrine in some ways. And a friend of mine, an artist, Namira, is who kind of put me onto the ashram. But Doja Cat apparently also grew up there. And it has another long-standing tradition in LA, and one thing we've been thinking about and talking about with some of the artists, like I was with A.D. Roberson yesterday talking about it, who has work in the show, A New Commission, is that ashram, which was built by Alice Coltrane and independently funded and brought together a number of musicians, artists, etc., for intentional practice, burned in a fire.
Wow, did not know that. The show is called Alice Coltrane Monument Eternal. I just looked it up at the Hammer. And she was also like a spiritual leader for a lot of people. I mean, so that's wild. I did not know that ashram burned in a fire.
Yeah, it burned in the fire, and the only thing left was the staircase to the hall where they meditated with, which I just love as an image. Like, you know.
And you have a show next year?
Yes, next spring at Mocha, Los Angeles, downtown, the Grand.
Wait, spring 2026?
Spring 2026.
Okay. That's a huge deal. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very excited about it.
I wonder how many black women of your generation get shows at the Mocha.
Yeah. I'm happy to be amongst those who do. I'm constantly fighting for more.
Yeah, I know that, and that's amazing too. The sisterhood is real.
Yeah,
it really is, quiet as it's kept. So we'll have to just track you and track the Mocha to know what that's going to be in 2026.
Yeah, right now I'm trying not to talk about it because you know they say like when you talk about an idea, you like take the energy out of it, or it's like you did it already.
Well, I need to stop talking. I talk too much. I mean, I talk for a living, but talking about my ideas.
I'm like,
yeah,
I'm
I get that.
Do this thing, so
better to be doing it than talking about it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now with it. But, yeah, but it is about Los Angeles. So somehow this will work its way in, and it has been really, I've been grateful to a lot of people who have supported the GoFundMe. I've been very supported by the arts community globally with this, as well as my community in Los Angeles. I've felt so lifted in my family, you know, people driving food to my family, picking them up, giving them a place to stay, offering them body work, so many things, you know, like cocoa stores, been running food to people, pasta. She's like a head chef at John Vinny's, food producer on The Bear, having a free kitchen that she's been running and literally delivering to families in need.
I mean, LA has really, really stepped up, and I think that's the part that's not told enough. It's time to pass the mic to Tavis Miley. Martine Sims, thanks for coming, and please send your friends, artists, and everyday families our way.
I will. Thank you, Dominique. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, indeed. Tavis Miley's up next. He's got a great show on deck for you. Like my mama used to say, history is now, and we are making it together. Don't forget to tap in on socials at KBLA 1580, DiPrima Radio, and we'll keep you in the loop. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. President Trump has officially pardoned roughly 1,500 people convicted in the January 6th riots. Trump signed the pardons on Monday in his first day back in the White House. He said he also signed commutations of sentences for 6 defendants. The National Weather Service has issued the highest fire on his